Okay, so you're here because you want to get informed.
Right.
You want to really understand what's going on, but you don't want to get lost in, an avalanche of articles and opinions and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly what we're all about here.
Absolutely.
Today, we're going to be diving deep into the life and career of Richard Chamberlain.
Fascinating figure.
Yeah, a really fascinating figure whose recent passing has kind of prompted us to take a closer look.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's someone who a lot of people know of, but
Yeah.
maybe don't know that much about.
Yeah, and we've been looking over the BBC News report.
Right.
As always, our aim is to go beyond just like the surface level.
Yes.
We want to understand, the key aspects of his journey,
Yeah.
his impact, his presence on our screens for so long, and also some of the more intriguing details that kind of, make up who he was as a person.
Absolutely. And those details are fascinating.
Right. So to start off,
Mm-hmm.
Richard Chamberlain passed away at 90 years old in Waimanalo, Hawaii.
Very recently.
Just shy of his 91st birthday.
Yeah.
And this was all confirmed by his publicist, Harlan Boll.
Right. And his longtime partner, Martin Rabbit, who described him as an amazing and loving soul.
Right.
And said that he was now free and soaring, which...
Well, yeah, that really gives you a sense of...
Yeah, their connection.
Yeah.
And also kind of his spirit, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds like he was quite a guy.
Now, for many of us, I think the first thing that comes to mind when we hear Richard Chamberlain is Dr. James Kildare.
Yes.
Right. That was really like his big breakthrough.
Yeah.
Back in 1961 with the medical drama.
It was. And that's interesting to think about, that the show was based on these popular films from the 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
So there was a kind of a familiarity there.
Yeah.
But Chamberlain really brought this, fresh, compelling energy to it. And what I think made Dr. Kildare so interesting and so compelling was that it was this medical drama, yes, but it was also imbued with this real sense of empathy and idealism and, and this kind of youthful hopefulness almost that I think contrasted with maybe some of the later portrayals of doctors that we saw that became much more cynical.
Right. It was sort of like a simpler time almost.
Yeah. And it tapped into this real societal hope and trust in medical profession at that time.
Right. People really believed in their doctors back then.
Right.
Yeah.
A different world.
And the show was a phenomenal success.
Absolutely.
It drew in massive viewing figures. I mean, I can't even imagine what those numbers would have been like back then.
Right.
Propelled him into the limelight.
Huge star.
Yeah, huge star, leading man, teen idol.
I mean, just think about the level of attention he must have received.
Oh, my God.
I mean, you think about it now with social media and the constant barrage.
Yeah.
But back then, even without that, it was just this intense focus.
I mean, you see those pictures of him, and he's surrounded by these, screaming fans.
It was a phenomenon. It was like Beatlemania almost with Richard Chamberlain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because Photoplay magazine, which was this really influential fan magazine at the time, they named him the most popular male star for 3 consecutive years.
Wow.
From 1963 to 65.
Okay.
Which really underscores his cultural impact, I think. Yes. At the time, he wasn't just a respected actor, but someone who captured that real admiration and sometimes even obsession of these younger audiences, which was this phenomenon that was really taking hold in the 60s.
Yeah, yeah. But his career didn't peak there?
Oh, no, not at all.
Not at all. He went on to really establish himself in a different realm of television in a way.
Yeah.
They called him the king of the 1980s TV miniseries.
It's quite a moniker.
That's quite a title.
Right, but it was earned.
Yeah.
And I think what was really interesting about that era of miniseries, as you recall, it offered this much more cinematic and immersive kind of storytelling experience than weekly episodic television.
Right. Yeah, it was more like event television.
Yeah, it's exactly like an event.
Yeah.
And Chamberlain, with his established, leading man charisma and his ability to embody all these really diverse roles, he was perfectly positioned to kind of like capitalize on that shift and draw in audiences who were hungry for these longer form narratives.
Right. And 2 particular roles from that era really stand out.
Yeah.
There was a Western prisoner in Shogun.
Yes.
And then also a Catholic priest.
Grappling with forbidden love.
Yes. Cool. Grappling with forbidden love in The Thornbirds.
Both incredibly compelling.
Yeah, both sound really good.
They were both hugely successful and showcased his versatility as an actor. I think Shogun in particular became this real cultural phenomenon. I mean, everybody was talking about it.
Right.
But the Thornbirds. Wow, the viewership numbers.
We're astounding.
60% of the total U.S. television audience.
Wow.
You almost can't fathom that today, right? In this world of streaming and, so many different options.
Fragmented, yeah.
Fragmented media landscape. It was an event.
Yeah.
Like, everybody was watching this.
Yeah.
And it garnered 16 Emmy nominations, too.
Wow.
So critical acclaim,
right,
as well as this huge popular success.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And that kind of fame, I mean, must have been really intense. And
absolutely.
it's interesting because while he was this very romantic figure on screen, his personal life remained very private for a long time.
Right.
Right. And the article really kind of emphasizes that contrast.
Well, it brings up an important point, doesn't it, about the pressures faced by those in the public eye?
Yeah.
I mean, here you have this incredibly popular actor known for these romantic roles.
Right.
And yet he maintained a very private 30-year relationship with actor-director Martin Rabbitt.
Right. And it wasn't until 2003.
With the release of his memoir, Shattered Love.
Yeah, with his memoir that he finally publicly spoke about his sexuality and revealed that he was gay.
And that must have been an enormous decision for him.
Oh, it must have been so difficult, especially
considering his past anxieties.
Right. He talks about it.
He admitted in the memoir that he was desperately afraid that revealing his sexuality would basically end his career.
Yeah. Wow.
Think about living with that level of fear.
Yeah, and constantly in the public eye.
Yeah, always under scrutiny.
Yeah, and I thought it was so interesting that the article mentions this detail about him escorting glamorous actresses to premieres.
To sort of maintain that image.
Because of this fear. Yeah, it's really sad to think about the lengths that he felt he had to go to for just his image. And it makes you think about the masks that people in the public eye sometimes feel they have to wear.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just romantic relationships either.
Yeah.
He talks about receiving 12,000 fan letters each week.
12,000.
During the Dr. Kildare years.
Oh, my God.
And feeling somewhat besieged by that.
I can imagine.
That level of intense fan attention combined with this necessity of keeping such a huge part of his life secret must have been just incredibly challenging.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
To navigate 12,000 letters a week. Can you imagine?
I can barely keep up with my email inbox.
Exactly. And these are physical letters.
Yeah.
You got to open them, read them.
Wow.
It's amazing.
It is, yeah. And the article also mentions that he and Rabbitt separated in 2010.
Okay.
Although they remain close.
Right.
So even after, navigating so much privately, it seems like that bond really held.
Yeah, a lot of meaning.
I think it speaks to the depth of their connection.
Yeah.
Now, let's step back for a second and consider his earlier years.
Okay.
The article gives us a little bit of insight into his upbringing and what might have influenced him.
Right.
So he was born in Beverly Hills, California.
Okay.
But described growing up on the wrong side of Wilshire Boulevard.
Yeah.
So for those of you who aren't familiar with Beverly Hills, Wilshire Boulevard...
and still is a kind of significant dividing line in terms of wealth and status.
Yeah.
So it creates this immediate contrast with the Hollywood affluence that we might typically associate with the area.
Right, yeah, so close.
Right.
But a world away.
Almost a world away, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
His father, Charles, was a salesman who struggled with alcoholism, but later became quite a prominent figure in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Which is a remarkable transformation and undoubtedly had a profound impact on his family.
Right.
To have someone so close to you go through that kind of journey.
Yeah.
It must have been quite something.
His mother, Elsa, was a homemaker.
Right. Providing stability at home.
Yeah, providing that foundation.
As her husband was kind of going through all of this.
Right.
And ultimately finding a new direction.
Yeah. And it's interesting, too, to note that he actually had artistic leanings from the beginning. He studied painting at Pomona College.
Yeah, that creative spark was there from the start.
It was, yeah.
It just manifested in a different way.
Right. But then as the article highlights,
a
student theater performance sparked something in him and led him to pursue acting.
It's amazing how these seemingly small, pivotal moments can completely change the course of someone's life.
And then, even before his acting career took off, he was drafted into the U.S. Army.
Right.
Served in South Korea, rose to the rank of sergeant.
So that experience in the military likely instilled a certain discipline in him.
Yeah.
Broadened his perspective.
Yeah.
And then when he returned to California, that's when he really got serious about pursuing acting.
Right.
Took classes and,
Yeah.
honed his craft before finally landing that life-changing role in Dr. Kildare. So it wasn't an overnight sensation. There was a definite journey involved.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it wasn't always smooth sailing, even after he achieved fame.
Right.
The article mentioned some personal hardships that he faced, particularly psychological abuse that he experienced during childhood.
Yeah, and that's a deeply significant revelation, I think.
It is.
It offers this more profound understanding of some of the complexities that he may have carried throughout his life.
Right.
He described his father's emotionally abusive behavior using really powerful and visceral language.
Yeah.
He talked about a lethal sneer and the feeling of being slashed with a machete.
Wow.
Those descriptions really convey the profound impact this had on him.
And it really underscores that contrast we were talking about.
It does.
The charming romantic persona versus these internal struggles.
Yeah, the private pain behind the public facade.
And I think it makes his later reflections on the relief of finally being able to live openly.
About his sexuality.
Yeah, even more meaningful. It wasn't just about his career.
No, it was about
being...
personal freedom.
Yeah.
Authenticity.
Yeah.
Living a truthful life.
Yeah.
Which is so important.
So as we look back at Richard Chamberlain's life, I mean, several key aspects really stand out.
They do.
I mean, first of all, his impact on television is undeniable.
Absolutely.
Starting as the beloved Dr. Kildare.
Yeah.
A role that resonated so deeply with audiences at the time.
Right.
And then later as this reigning king of the miniseries.
Yeah, the 80s.
Yeah, in the 80s, this period where longer form storytelling really captivated the nation.
Yeah, captivated the world, really. I mean, these shows were seen
internationally.
all over the place.
Yeah, and then alongside this really remarkable and enduring career, we see this very personal and often private journey of navigating this immense fame while keeping a significant part of himself hidden and ultimately finding the courage and peace to live more openly later in his life.
It's inspiring in a way.
It is.
To think about the journey he went on and the challenges he overcame.
And ultimately finding peace and acceptance.
And it makes you think about, the pressures that public figures across different eras have faced when it comes to their private lives.
Their personal lives.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How societal shifts and maybe some persistent biases have shaped or maybe not significantly changed.
Right.
Those dynamics.
It's an ongoing conversation, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And I think Richard Chamberlain's life and career really reveal this intricate intersection of fame and personal identity and public perception. So much to think about there.
Yeah, a lot to consider for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for this deep dive. It's been
You're welcome.
Really interesting to learn more about him.
I think he's a figure that deserves to be remembered.
Absolutely.
And understood in a deeper way.
Yeah, and I hope this conversation has helped our listeners to do just that.
I hope so too.
Thanks for listening. And thanks for joining me.